we'll quickly hit tight end. We don't, it's one of the lesser, I shouldn't call it lesser position. If you get the edge at tight end, it certainly can be a huge deal. But for the most part, most tight ends bust. But you do have a guy that's typically a top 5 tight end as a potential bust candidate this year. Why don't you dive into that and who you're thinking could not meet his expectations?
Well, and this one goes to what do you determine to be a bust? Because what I'm looking at, I still have Darren Waller as a top 5 tight end in my rankings, but that's a lot lower than we've had him in recent years. Like you mentioned, he's been right up there for a while. It was Kelsey, Kittle, and Waller. They were the elite guys, right? Last year, we'd see Mark Andrews sneak up there now, and he's in that elite tier. I think Kittle and Waller are guys that I'm a little more concerned about. And the reason is just target competition. Before, when they were putting up great stats, they were almost the de facto number 1 receiver in their offense. And now with Kittle, and I think Kittle, arguably the best tight end in the league, like all around talent wise, he's still going to have some monster games. But now you have Deebo Samuel there and you have Brandon Ayuk emerging. You got some other guys that are really going to eat into any potential volume for Kittle. Makes him a little more inconsistent probably as the year goes along, but there'll still be some big games along the way. And maybe the season end numbers will be fine, but I don't think he's going to give you the kind of production that you're going to get out of a Kelsey or an Andrews or maybe even Pitts this year. If Pitts takes another step forward, I think it's just a matter of time before he's in that elite tier, and it probably happens this season. For Waller, how is it going to go down? Because Darren Waller, now with Devontae Adams there, just a true volume hog. So now you don't have Darren Waller as that de facto number 1. You have Hunter Renfrow in the slot, and we know Josh McDaniels has loved using the slot receivers a bunch. And you look at Darren Waller as a guy that he doesn't score a lot of touchdowns. He's not a big touchdown scorer in the past. There was a report recently that they're going to try to feature him more in the red zone. I hope they do, because he does not have a lot of seasons with big touchdown totals. So I'm not convinced that that's how he's going to save himself this year when the rest of his volume goes down. He hasn't produced that well against the other teams in the AFC West. There's been this arms race on both sides of the ball the last couple of years in the AFC West where they're just stacking up and loading up. Well, last year he didn't top 60 yards in the 4 games he played against the AFC West. He missed a couple with injury, but in the 4 he played, didn't top 60 yards in any of those games. So if he's not having big games against his own division and he's not getting the same kind of volume that he was getting before, now he needs to do it with touchdowns, and he hasn't been a touchdown scorer really most seasons. So that's where I'm concerned. I think the stat I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, I think he's had only 1 year where he scored more than 3 touchdowns. I might be wrong about that. I got it somewhere in here, but I think that was the stat that I had pulled earlier in the offseason. Trying to remember all this stuff. I wrote some of this stuff so long ago, and now I'm trying to pull it back from several months ago, but that's why I'm concerned about Waller. And I still think he's going to be a good tight end. I still think he's going to produce for fantasy, but somebody that if you're going to have to spend up to get him in the 4th round or so, not doing it at all. I have him ranked, I think, end of the 5th round in my top 200. And that's a spot where he's just not going to reach that range because people are going to see that name. They're going to see the elite guys already off the board, and they're going to go, I have to get Kittle or Waller, because after that, it's going to completely drop off. I would wait a couple more rounds. I'd grab a Dalton Schultz. I would wait a couple rounds after that, and maybe even grab a Dallas Goedert, or wait a little later and get a Cole Kmet. Like, there are other options that I think could give you numbers that are shockingly close to what Darren Waller might give you this season.
Those were the exact 2 guys I was just going to shout out, because both of those guys, Kittle and Waller, I've landed absolutely minimal of them, because I have Dalton Schultz actually coming out slightly ahead in PPR formats, at least in my projections right now. I think he sees just as many, if not more, targets, with so much up for grabs in an offense that's been first in total yards and first in points last year, top 2 in both of Dak and Kellen Moore's seasons together when Dak was fully healthy. And now it's a complete and huge void, at least until Michael Gallup gets there. But even when he comes back, I think Dalton Schultz proved he has a great rapport with Dak over there. So yeah, I'm with you. I'd either go Pitts early and just hope he becomes that, next first rounder, that Kelsey style guy in round 3. I love doing that. And if I don't do that, I kind of wait for round 7-ish or even 6 sometimes for Dalton Schultz, or then I just punt the position. If I'm not getting him, maybe I get the touchdown fiend over there in Buffalo, Dawson Knox. I don't mind him at all. Round 10, I think he's going to have some pretty good numbers. So yeah, I'm 100% with you on both those guys. I think they're great names to toss out. Someone you mentioned in your article that I'll just toss out there as well is Mike Gesicki. I think he fits this offense very poorly. They're going to need a blocking tight end. They're talking about him playing in line a lot more, and that's not his strength. That's not his style. He's thrived the last couple of years as a big split out wide, like kind of a big complementary receiver in a way. And that's just not what he's going to fill in this offense. They have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. So even if he was playing that role, I think it'd be questionable. But I think he's going to be kind of jamming a square peg into a round hole in this offense and might find himself off the field far more than we'd expect. So when he goes in that range of like a Freiermuth or a Gerald Everett or, some of those guys, I'd rather even have like Hayden Hurst a few rounds later than Mike Gesicki. He's kind of one of those guys I've just crossed off my draft board despite the quality stats he's been putting up. Is there anything else to add on him, or should we hit the rapid fire?
Gesicki's the low hanging fruit. He's the one that I bring up or that I wrote in my article where like I almost felt bad doing it because it's one that I feel like everybody knows at this point. But yeah, his biggest games, most of them have come when those other guys in the offense were injured, when Devontae Parker went down, when Preston Williams was out. And now this year you have Jalen Waddle who broke it last season. You got Tyreek Hill there. You got these monsters. There's no way that he's going to be a consistent starter in your fantasy lineup. There's a lot of better options you can take chances on.
Absolutely. What is up, you fantasy wolf? Thanks so much for tuning in. If you haven't already, share your thoughts in the comments. Check out some more videos and join the newest Wolfpack by subscribing below.